AI study. It's called 2027 AI or something like that. A well-referenced, incredibly detailed forecast of the next 3 years or so of AI. And I'm not a big fan, but what this forecast came down to, it's really interesting to me, is one human attribute makes the difference between the end of civilization and the ongoing uh, enjoyment that we human beings have on our earth. And that one single factor is honesty. If an AI is trained on honesty, it's a winner. If it's not, if it's suspicious, if it's distrustful, that's the end of everything.
Martians landed.
Yes.
Wearing Prada suits.
Yes.
Drinking Henry Seltzer.
Yes.
Chewing juicy fruit.
Yes, and?
Your branding here.
Yes, brand.
Your message here.
Yes, and?
A verse about
Yes.
your product here.
Yes.
I'm Hersh Redmond.
Yes, and?
I'm a message therapist.
Yes.
And I have a podcast.
Yes, brand.
That's right, that's it.
Yes.
We'll help you fix the world.
Yes.
Or your bottom line.
All right.
Your bottom line.
Get it. I get it. Welcome to the Yes Brand Podcast.
I am here today on this very special 7th season of Yes Brand with Bill Protzmann of Musimorphic. And Bill founded in 2011, Bill founded Music Care Incorporated, which was a purpose-driven company dedicated to the teaching of practical ways to use music beyond intervention and self-care. And his work earned him a National Council for Behavioral Health's Award of Excellence in 2014, which is that industry's equivalent of the Oscar. And in 2023, Musicare introduced Musimorphic, which is a bold new brand. And that's why it's so appropriate for Yes Brand for our discussion. It's focused on enhancing wellness, deepening relationships, bringing back the joy, play, and healing power of music. And I can testify, based on personal experience, that is exactly what Musimorphic accomplishes. First of all, welcome, Bill, to Yes Brand. Yeah. Why don't you, can you do me a favor and share your perspective on our session, on on that session that we conducted?
So what Hersh is talking about is a very short, like less than an hour, interactive session where we go deep on a particular piece of music that's important to the person in the session. So this would have been important to Hersh. And through some really simple questions and answers, unpack a little bit more of what's under the surface of that music. Most of the time, the music we use is music that people have known for most of their lives. You know, we lock in our music in adolescence. And a lot of the time, the songs come up from that period of life. And they can be beautifully transformative when you begin to inhabit them a little bit more deeply. A lot of us think that we're using music when we have it on in the background, you know, and that's great because without the music, there would be less of the goodness that we have available. But to bring that music out of the background, to take it off the wall, it's not just wallpaper, right? To take it off the wall and do something with it, that's pretty new. I have great respect for sound healers, and I've done some of that work too. But wouldn't it be great, people, if you could do this on your own? Like if you could sit down and be your own sound healer and start healing some stuff, right? Could you do that?
Yeah.
And in my experience, the answer is yes, most certainly yes. And please do, because, you know, all of us need, but even beyond healing. So in that short session, we can begin to take the lid off the can, you know, and kind of look inside and see the stack of Pringles down there and maybe take one or two off the top. But it's a great way of reinvigorating our interest in the arts. And I'm going to say it that way, Hersh, because although I'm a musician and I believe that music has properties that the arts don't, we need to reinvest in our humanity here in this age of looming AI.
Yeah.
Right? And really come to know one another as individuals, yes, but as people, as tribes, as communities of people who want very similar things. And it turns out that music has been doing that for thousands of years. And if we can get back to that place instead of looking at it as a fix-it tool, or, I've got to
Yeah.
play this music and I'll sleep better, or whatever it is. If we can start to looking at it as a community builder, well, that would just be such a great way of bringing us back into connection with one another, even virtually, because as you know, we do this virtually. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to ask you what your experience of that session was like afterward and going forward. What was it like for you?
Well, for me, Bill, it was a very special way of getting in touch with my motivations. Why am I doing, my why? Why am I doing this? Why am I engaging in these conversations? Why do I have this podcast? Why am I getting up and taking on new clients in my personal brand strategy practice transformation? I think it was after that I started viewing what I was doing differently, because I started viewing, I had used, it's funny because we had in common this kind of personal touch, this way that
Yeah.
we like to actually work with people and actually touch them through our work. And I had been calling myself a personal brand therapist, and I'm fond of the term, but I also felt like, it's really more personal brand transformation that I'm doing. I'm helping somebody transform their perception of themselves, their image that they are putting out, their messaging, and so forth. And
If you're
you
hearing
know,
this right now, I have this big smile on my face.
yeah. Well, we had this moment together where, it was all based on music. It started with, you asked me what music is on my heart right now, which is a beautiful way of somebody even asking you anything, you know? And I discovered things about my motivation and about my feelings for my family, and as relates to one of the most important tactile kind of elements in my life, which is music. And I'm not a musician. I play around with instruments, is how I would mention it. I love the touch and feel of piano. I just love it. And that's how I started as a child. And that's how I've carried it through into adulthood, without instruction, without formal training, just loving the feel of it. That's the best I can describe it. So for me, the session was a way to acknowledge the importance of music in my life with a seemingly random or randomly chosen song, right? Which in my case was Mandy by Barry Manilow.
That great Barry Manilow, yeah.
And I think I said to you at the time, well, maybe it's on my heart at the moment because I listen to it almost every day in a kind of different playlist. It's probably on 5 different playlists that I have. So it's bound to turn up. It's one of those, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But then you kind of guided me through, well, why is it turning up? Getting me to think, why is it turning up on so many playlists? And what does it even mean? Have I ever even listened to the lyrics, beyond subconsciously? Like, have I consciously listened to the lyrics? So it was an amazing and joyful and transformative experience.
It's what we
for
want.
me. Yeah.
That's Musimorphic, right?
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to this because talking to you about a brand is, as a musician myself, right? So I've been branding myself as Bill Protzmann, the piano player, right? And that's, I don't know, 50 years old now. But, if you're looking for a piano player and you don't know my name, that's a terrible brand.
Right. Okay.
So what can I do to change that and take that in some other direction? And that was Music Care back in the day, still is. I'm still the proud owner of that corporate name. However, there's another organization that I respect greatly who had a problem with me branding as Music Care.
Yeah. Music Cares.
Music Cares, the Grammy organization that funds musician members who need help financially and with other things. And they had a problem. So I had to invent a word. And when you're going for a neologism and it's going to be your brand, Hersh, I had no idea how big that was. right? First of all, I have to make up a word so that it cannot be, so there's no copyright infringement in the first place, and so it can be trademarked in the second. And what would that word be, and how would you come up with it? And I've got this, mouthful of word that defines
Yeah.
the transformative, the morphic power of music. And then people have to look at it twice to be able to say it. And it's like, this is the lousiest, the lousiest brand out there. But I'll tell you what, man, I've discovered that when you build a word that way, you can sweep a lot of stuff into that bin. And what you did in our session was musimorphic,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And the meaning of that word for you will be different to the meaning of that word for somebody else who used, some, metal band as the music on their heart, right? It's the
Yeah.
same at the end of the day, but the process is so much different. And I had no idea when I built the word that that would be part of what happens to it. And I can say,
Yeah.
yeah, it defines the company and it's what we do, and here's our mission, and blah, 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 and all that. But when you've had the experience at not knowing what to call it,
Yeah.
I've started to just call it the musimorphic experience. And that can apply whether you're doing a 1 hour session or an 8 week quest, right? It's still musimorphic.
Yeah.
And
And we've had this ongoing discussion about personal branding,
oh
about
yeah, yeah.
whether the person needs to be in the brand. And as you know, I'm an open-minded and curious person. And so I never really try to convince anyone, oh, but you must do that. But I can make an argument based on my experience or my thoughts.
Oh yeah, and it'd be a good argument too, because painters and musicians and people who are themselves as their brand
Yeah.
are
But
one important component of that.
yeah. But I
But
also think, and I also have come around to the idea that a personal brand is not just about a person, it is a brand that is personal and personally relevant and tethered to my own identity, let's say.
right, right.
So musimorphic is, and I tell clients that your personal brand is bigger than your business, right? Because it encompasses all these things about you. But that doesn't mean that your personal brand, let's say that Musimorphic is your personal brand, not Bill Protzmann, but Musimorphic is Bill's personal brand. That's
Yeah,
how I see it.
yeah.
Because and I wrote this down I often write bios or mission statements or whatever. That's kind of the article I would like to see about that person, right? So I write it as an article. It has quotes. It's an interview style. Sometimes it can be third person or first person on the writer's part. It could be the person's first person autobiographical article. But anyway, I just wrote the musimorphic man. You
Isn't
know,
that perfect?
because obviously I'm thinking of the Music Man,
Yep.
but it has this. I just wrote it down as you were talking, because it to me it encapsulates who you are, right? But it also has this kind of almost Asimov type of title, right?
Yeah.
The musimorphic man, like it's mankind. It's mankind. It's the acknowledgement that we all are musimorphic and that music transforms us, but it's not music does to play on those words. Music doesn't care, right? As a thing.
Yeah, it's a
Music
thing.
isn't animate.
Yeah,
So it doesn't really care whether we listen to it or not, right? And that's
exactly.
my whole take on AI is that we can get all crazy about AI taking our place and AI, but AI isn't doing anything. AI doesn't care one way or another. We care. So the question is, do we want to give our participation over to an automated artificial intelligence, or do we want to retain our involvement and our tether to our own world. Like,
this is such an important question, right?
yeah.
I started as an entrepreneur in this world in IT ages ago, and at one point I wanted to work for IBM.
Yeah.
Talk about a brand, right? International Business Machines, like that
The
mainframe
brand.
computers, like. Plus, I kind of liked the blue suits and the rep ties, but on my first day there, when I showed up in a double-breasted blue suit,
Ooh.
which was way outside the fashion norm for, IBM clones at the time. And sorry if you're working for IBM, guys, I love you. It's not that. But I felt like I had to put a certain part of my identity outside the building in order to come into the building and be an IBMer. And as I went through the process of indoctrination and training into I went through marketing training and all that, I realized that more and more of myself would have to sit outside the building in order for me to do this job well. And even the parts of me that are like, the entrepreneurial parts, the initiative, the drive, let's figure out how we can do this, those things didn't fit. And IBM at the time was, the personal computer was new. And so IBM was going through this identity crisis. And we can't have personal computers. We're a mainframe company, right? So there was the identity crisis happening. And then my personal, like, how do I fit into this thing? Do I fit in the mainframe or the computer? It didn't work for me, Hersh.
Yeah.
The most incredible computer brand at the time didn't fit. And I couldn't leave enough of myself outside the building to come to work and still be happy, And that really got my attention. And it formed the way that I think about brand now, because Musimorphic is a brand for everybody. And I think you've hit the nail on the head with that. I wanted to have something that wasn't about me as a care provider, right?
Right.
It wasn't about me. I wanted something that was about everyone. A brand that everyone could say, yeah, that's us, without having to leave any of themselves outside of the room.
That's beautiful. And
that's so important these days.
Oh my gosh. And also, in our argument or discussion or whatever we were having about
we should publish that. It's great. It's on LinkedIn. You can join in.
Well, thank you for the permission to do that, because
oh yeah, do it.
I think it would be great. But what it tapped into was a feeling that a lot of people have, which is, but it's not about me. It's about my audience. It's about you. It's not only that, but we're often told that best practice for any business or any brand is to not make it about yourself. And what I was trying to communicate was, well, it doesn't have to be about you.
Right.
But it's that how are people going to come to trust you if you don't exist beyond a brand or a brand name or a company or a building, a facade, so to speak, right? So they have to know about the beating heart behind it. Now, and you kind of shot back that, well, I do share it. It's not like I'm not on videos. It's not like I'm not sitting here having this conversation. I'm representing Musimorphic, and I just had to sit with that a little while, and I'm now comfortable with the idea that Musimorphic and Bill Protzmann can happily coexist, and right,
yeah,
but that the Musimorphic essence is really for people. In other words, it's your life as a human being is not for the picking. You know what I mean? It's not for other people to come and take it and use it. Here's my life. That often when stars do that, and I say stars because it made me think of celebrities who, like Madonna with Truth or Dare or whatever it was, where, or whatever example you want to choose, where a celebrity says, I belong to the people, right? I belong to the people. And in a way, that's the ultimate kind of narcissistic gesture, because you're saying, no, what you're really saying is they only exist because of me. In other words, I'm here to be worshipped or to be, they may not realize it, but they're saying that I'm here to be commercialized.
Right,
And
right.
and 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 I worry when I see people do that because yeah, it can result in billions of dollars and economic success and for an industry and for even for a country. Like you look at Taylor Swift's impact
Oh my gosh, yes.
economically, and it's astounding. But I don't care so much about that as I would care about her welfare as a person. Is she happy? Is she fulfilled? Is it everything she wanted it to be? You know, and sometimes that celebrity is actually thinking about the audience and the people, but they get confused. They don't know what to do. Where does the personal brand end and where does it begin? Like a, a great example, since it is about music, I think, is Dolly Parton,
Oh my
because
gosh.
Dolly Parton has an incredible grasp of where she ends and her brand begins, and commercialism is, and what it does for people. And she's so giving, and she's so generous and gracious and classy. But she also has, an appreciation that, okay, yeah, but you don't own me. Nobody owns me. And I make the decision and I decide how my image is going to be used. And and it's very instructive, in my opinion, of a personal brand, what a personal brand should be. I'm going to make a note of that because I think there's a good article in that.
I agree.
But let me tell me your thoughts.
So musicians, in some ways, have an advantage over others when it comes to brand, because we
Yeah.
have to think about these things. I'm not Dolly Parton or Taylor Swift, right? But I still have an advantage in know, like, and trust,
Yeah.
because I can offer something that's not me into the world where consumers can interact with it, irrespective of me. They can interact with it and decide where they fit within this universe of, small universe, but within this small universe of music that Bill Protzmann has created.
Right.
And I never even know about many of them, right? The check
Yeah.
comes from ASCAP. It's, I don't know, it was $30 last year. So that means,
Right.
some 30,000 people or maybe 300,000 people heard a song, what, I don't know. I don't know who all those people are.
I love the ASCAP checks that are like 3 cents,
I know, right?
you know, 12
Like,
cents.
but it's something. And so that means people are
Yeah.
listening, right? I'll never know a lot of those people. Every so often I'll get, radio airplay sends me user comments, or I'll see something, where you find out, but you don't find out about the vast majority of people who are hearing what you do. Or now in some cases, because I've got recorded video out there, seeing and hearing what you do. And that gives musicians an advantage because we're comfortable doing that. That's our sort of face to the world. We're not so comfortable as entrepreneurs. There's
Yeah.
some amazing musicians out there, unlike Taylor Swift and Dolly Parton. Particularly, I'm thinking of the classical musicians,
Oh,
for whom
sure.
marketing is another universe, right?
Yeah.
Nevertheless, some of them rise to the top, and we know names like Yo-Yo Ma and Itzhak Perlman and people like that. And you can see a lot of Perlman stuff on Instagram because he's really come down in a fun way, kind of hard on his Instagram feed, offering us insight into who he is as a person. And he's a beautiful person. He just
Yeah.
is. So there's that kind of obvious separation that most people in the music world kind of turn over to somebody else, to a producer or to somebody else to market them. Not so much anymore, but that's been our history for hundreds of years. What do you do with that? If you are in fact somebody who's an entrepreneur doing something in some way, offering your music as a know, like, and trust can be a really valuable adjunct sort of marketing to what you're doing in your mainstream. But with me, it gets even worse because, yeah, you can know, like, and trust and find content and consume it, whether it's musical and audible or whether it's like this interactive.
Yeah.
But when it comes right down to how do you turn that into something? How do you musimorphic that? how do you put some steam behind that and actually turn it into something that is important to the listener or to the consumer? That's a really interesting bridge to cross. And
Mm.
every so often somebody's jingle will get picked up and used against their will and,
Right.
marketing something. But we're talking about a deeper level here. How is it that the music that you love influences what you do? And if you're not getting the results that you want, have you tried music? And that's sort of like a weird question, but
That's a great quote, by the way.
right?
Have
And
you
it's
used
not
that? Have
something,
you used that
oh, sure, all the
for,
time.
yeah, no, but I mean like prominently, like in the brand sense, in promoting the brand or,
Well, so that's a whole different issue. I mean, I'm talking about music right now as you just put it out in the world and hope somebody hears you, right?
yeah.
But when we talk about marketing and brand, we're sort of narrowing that down and trying to put some focus on it and make sure that the message gets in front of the right people. And in my experience as a piano player with some steam in a business, I cannot compete, Hersh, with the brands that can make more noise than I do. I can't compete with the annoyance economy. I don't want to. I don't want to compete in the annoyance economy. Uh, these are areas where, as a musician, I see vast disharmony, and offering music into a thunderstorm, like sitting in the thunderstorm with your guitar playing, might be great for you, but it won't change the thunderstorm, and probably nobody's going to hear you. If it's a
Yeah.
big storm. So I want to be able to be very focused on who gets that question. And that is stepping back from all of what we've learned, especially since the pandemic, but before, all the marketing classes I had at IBM, all the business 101s, like it's stepping way back from that and saying all of that has brought us to the place where we are now when it comes to marketing and the way business is done, solopreneurs like me and whatever, all of that knowledge has brought us to where we are right now, where the noisiest brands win, regardless of how it sounds.
Well,
And the annoyance economy has taken over.
I love the annoyance economy, but what I have strived to do is to prove that you can rise above the din, that you can be heard, that you can be seen, that your brand can be appreciated, and exactly in the way that you describe, being particular about the audience,
Well, yes, I agree with
handpicking
that.
the audience, so to speak, choosing
Handpicking
the
them
audience.
one
That's
at a time.
part of my formula is that I don't say to somebody, "Oh, I can make a star out of anyone," or that I even try to. I don't say you should have millions and millions of devotees. Although in the case of Musimorphic, it doesn't have a finite audience per se, right? It's not,
It, yeah,
you know,
there's
it's not for
there's no silo
barbers.
it fits into.
Yeah,
There's
for
no
for
vertical. There's no
for
right.
barbers who like music or something like that. It's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
it's not a specific, it's not niched in that way, which hence the problem, right? Because if you were targeting a very specific and limited audience, it might be easier to get their attention because you would narrow down on that thing. Have you ever had your flea barker connector go out in the middle of a Schlutzentappen? Well, if you have,
Yep,
right,
yep.
then I'm the one to fix it, and then you would speak their language. But in your case, you have the world as your audience. But I do think that those phrases and words that resonate as I talk to you are ones that resonate for me for a reason, which and that's kind of what I think it's about in a way. Because translation, and this is one of the reasons we connect so well, is that we are both, believers in language, right? In
Yeah.
translation, in the language of the heart, the language of the mind, the language of music, the language of language, the language of words, right? That I think if we choose those in a certain way, and the beauty of communicating is that we get more than one chance. I never liked the idea. I think I always almost cringed at the notion of you only get one opportunity to make a first impression. Technically, of course, that's true, but you have an unlimited number of people upon whom to impress, right? So,
Exactly.
so yeah, if I were meeting the Queen when she were alive, yes, I would have been meeting the Queen of England. I would only get one chance to make a first impression. But I also have made a poor first impression occasionally on people who mattered to me, that I didn't want, and then had to fix that had to change that impression because we're not all powerful. We can't control everything. We don't, people don't always take things exactly as they were intended, or nor do we, know them. Nor do we know them intimately. And so how can you make, an amazing first impression every time out? You can certainly do your best to present the way you want to be perceived, but it just doesn't always work. So I think that there's a chance that some of these words and some of these things that I pull out, even though, it may feel marketing oriented, is still, again, goes back to the personal. It's personal.
I agree. Yeah, definitely is
Yeah.
personal. Can we
Yeah.
talk about language for a second? Because you said
Yes, of
something and
course.
it got me thinking, and I wish I could remember the philosopher who said this, but uh, a long time ago, a philosopher observed that our thinking is really how we define everything. So if we can put language behind it, we can understand it, right? So in our minds, whatever language we're speaking up there, we can look at a thing, an object, let's look at the sun or the moon or something, and we can describe that. And we can talk about how it moves, and we can talk about how bright it is and how it changes shape, based on, and we can sort of, using the rational mind, understand what's happening as we look at the moon. Unfortunately, that doesn't work in music
Mhm.
because music happens and then we go and talk about it. And I'd like to suggest that the reason that Taylor Swift has all those fans is not the talking about it part. That comes after. There's
Right.
something about the music itself that grabs people. And we have lyrics that can guide us through, but there's something else that's going on there beyond the lyrics. People who go to classical music will understand this. Where there are no words, something is at work that unifies us. Something is at work
Yeah.
that gets into us. Something other than language unlocks, other than spoken language, unlocks inside of us, other than the rational language. And I think that that language of music that we can only talk about later, but that
Yeah.
language of music that happens in the moment that you experience with Mandy
Yeah.
is the language of we'll call it the right brain. It's the non-analytical language. It's the language of the soul. And if you're able to speak in that language and people can hear that, they can change, right? And I said you there, but if you hear a piece of music, you
Yeah.
know, that you love,
But
then you are ready to think in or process that in something we might call subconscious or soul language or something other than the rational part of your mind that has to interpret the words to put meaning behind it.
right. Well,
Purpose, words, meaning that all exist without thought, if that makes any sense.
it makes total sense. I don't know if we played it back, would it make total sense? But but I
Yeah.
was thinking that what I'll do, I'll probably cut this little snippet out. But what I will do, I'm making a note to myself to try to play that instrumental opening of the song that I alluded to when we did our session,
Yeah.
because that instrumental opening of the song is what grabs me every time. And again, that's been for 30 years probably subconscious, because when
Right.
have I ever been called to analyze the song? Never.
Right.
And
Right.
if anything, Barry Manilow is a great example because it's popular music. You know, it's something that's often kind of disregarded, because of isn't it funny that the more people something affects, the less distinguished by nature we consider it. So in other words, if it's Shakespeare and it play, once people realized that Shakespeare was a man of the people, so to speak, writing to the most common man or woman, that we think, oh, it's less special. It was great when we thought nobody understood it and nobody got it, and it was this special thing. Oh, of course, then it's important. But as soon as everybody gets it, it's not great anymore, and that isn't really true. And so too with Musimorphic. It's like it is it is for everyone who wants to take advantage of that, who's ready to take advantage of that, which is interesting to explore from a brand perspective, because we always create an ICP, an ideal client persona or profile. When you think about Musimorphic as a brand and you think about its ICP, what comes to your mind?
Well, this is a question I've been working on for a long time. Because I don't have a vertical market, I don't even have a horizontal one. I've had to drill down below the levels of what people want to get to something that's more fundamental about who we are as people.
Yeah.
And the idea of who we are as people is one that's been, covered by Shakespeare and a bunch of other. So reading deeply into that, you start to get a sense that, first of all, we are all one. That beautiful picture of the Earth that was taken from the moon, the very first one. We are all one kind of organism, I suppose.
Yeah.
And in that oneness, things start to set us apart that are not so good. Like some of us like to go out and blow things up because we believe that we have a divine mission to do that. Some of us like to sit on mountaintops and meditate because we believe that that's part of who we are, right? And it's the same equipment. It's just employed doing things differently, right? So when we get to the level of same equipment and forget about what we're doing, remove the doing from it and just focus on the being. What is it about our being that could use some help right now? And I participate in an organization that got started before the pandemic, but it was started in Australia to help eliminate loneliness. And online you can, get people together. And I thought, wow, here's all these people who are feeling lonely, feeling alone and isolated. Why should a human being have to feel alone? We're tribal people. We want to congregate and get together and share together. How can I support that kind of activity, right? And that's way below the level of what happens in a boardroom or even in on the floor of a business. But there's something fundamental about that.
Yeah.
That's why I went to IBM, right? I want to be part of the tribe, right?
That's right.
And I didn't fit, but that's all right because I'm still a human. There's still things I can do, right? So at that level of human connection, which is way below how we deploy that in the world, there's some missing pieces there. The great polarity that exists in our world right now, there's a lot of fear. That's where music is working. Music is working at the level of the emotions, obviously. And it can do wonderful things if we go to it with intention to sort of relieve some of those symptoms. But the big opportunity there is to reconnect. Everything that we've done technologically has sort of isolated us into individual, like this is my thing and this is how I run my thing and I'm going to deploy it over there because those people will like me and we'll interact and we'll network and we'll do something together and we'll collaborate. But below that, there's still this scared individual that's trying to be a human in the world. And as far as I can tell, the great spiritual opportunities that are out there, people are flocking to meditation as a way of being able to cope, right? And then they're flocking to music. Look at Taylor, right, as a way to cope. But they're not flocking to the institutions and organizations that used to be good at this, like the churches used to be good at this.
Right.
We used to have a sense of patriotism and national pride that has become sort of fractured, not just in America, but in lots of other countries.
Oh yeah,
And
globally.
these are tribal things that are the result of whatever the last few hundred years have brought us to this place, right? But it doesn't change our basic needs, which are to
Yeah,
be seen and appreciated and loved and cared for and all of that kind of stuff. And that's the opportunity for Musimorphic. That's where we work at the human level, right? How do we
yeah,
message that? Uh,
yeah. And I think, well, I'll start at the fundamental level just to talk through it because I think that those needs that we have that you described are the same needs. In other words, the person who joins the army because they want to blow things up or rises to power based on a desire to tap into that human desire to blow things up, let's just say,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that same person could be brought in, indoctrinated into a cult of love, right?
Oh, sure, right. And we see
They're
that too. Yeah,
they're not born looking to blow things up. They're born looking to connect, to fit
yeah,
in.
yeah.
And quite often they go one way first and then they are not fulfilled or experience, repercussions that show them that that was not the choice that they meant to take.
Yeah, like my IBM story,
Yeah,
right?
like the IBM story. And the double-breasted thing is another great image because I remember being a kid and wearing suits and loving suits and thinking, what does the suit, like subconsciously, what does the suit represent? Because I loved costumes, I loved dressing up, and I was very cognizant when I put on a suit of what the impression was and the difference, now that I think about it, between a double-breasted suit and a single-breasted suit, or a suit or a three-piece suit, right?
Right.
A suit with a vest. And I'm talking about like 11, 12 years old, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
so on
You
and
get it.
so forth. And then thinking, well, this is my uniform, quote unquote, what a uniform meant. But all of it, all of it was about wanting to fit in. And we use the word tribe very often and very loosely now, which is great. It's great to use that because it's a wonderful thing, a tribe. But I think that if we could focus on the fact that everybody wants to belong instead of focusing on where we want to put them or how we can manipulate them into being in our tribe, you
There you go.
know,
Yeah.
that's that. And that's not even a new concept. The idea of creating content that people will pull versus pushing content on them, but on a much deeper level. And I think the takeaway might be, why don't we try having more respect for the tribe that we believe we should belong to? In other words, if I'm Frito Lay as a brand and I say, I want to attract this market, the Hispanic market, I want to now market to, it used to be so divided in its the ad agencies used to say, okay, well, we have a Hispanic division, or we have the, which is, you could say that's insulting, or you could say, well, they're trying to speak to that community. What's
Yeah, I
wrong
get
with
it.
it? Well, it's
Yeah.
not a judgment. There is no value judgment. The point is, though, if we want to connect with a tribe, don't we have to respect the audience? So respecting the audience would seem to be a great way in. And then when you bring that back to music, the idea of sharing music or tapping into music, because music is inanimate, it's the most emotionally resonant and profound inanimate element that I can think of. Now, not everybody reacts that way. Some people react to visuals more than music. Some people, but when I think about, just as an example, musical comedy, right? I love musical comedy because comedy, in a way, is one of the most intellectually sophisticated tools that anyone can use. It has a high level of execution in comedy, but it also can only be appreciated once. I mean, there are things we laugh at and we don't know why. Slipping on the banana peel, all that stuff. We don't know why we laugh. We just laugh as a knee-jerk response. That's why they call it the funny bone, right?
Right,
But
right.
but music has that same immediate impact on us, that same emotional resonance without thinking, just like the Barry Manilow, just like the opening strains of Mandy, or for that matter, the swelling crescendos and things that Manilow is known for that really push those buttons, that literally touch those heartstrings in ways that we can't quite explain. And
And
so,
yeah, when we explain it, it
you
sounds
know,
dumb. Like,
yeah,
well, there's
when
a
we explain
formula.
it,
Here's how
it
every song
cheapens
works,
it
right?
cheapens it,
But it doesn't.
or
We
yeah,
can.
it doesn't do it
The
justice.
explanation is not enough, right? Just listen to it. I just go listen to this thing with me. You'll understand, right?
Yeah, but that is to circle back to Musimorphic. That is what Musimorphic brings and taps into and uses. And what
Yes.
your argument has been so vocally, your argument has been yes, and you don't need anyone else to do it for you. You know,
Yep.
it
We all
is
have all the equipment, and you
we
demonstrated
have
that, of course, right?
yeah, we have all the equipment. We just need to learn and be open to how to use it.
Very true.
And so I think there is tremendous potential to play the to play the musomorphic instrument, so to speak, so that people get it, you know. But there are those things that I think everything. I mean, if we really look at it, I think everything requires proof of concept, requires demonstration, requires a little bit of illustration, and what I do in personal branding is I seek out collaborators, clients. I call them, brand mates, because in a way that it is always collaboration. And I seek out those that require a little higher level of execution, because that's what challenges me. That's what's interesting to me, is to take something really deep, really profound, really meaningful, really useful, and help distill the message into something really accessible, really attainable, achievable, and distributable. And so, but I think that is what is so intriguing to me about Bill Protzmann, as much as is intriguing to me about Musimorphic. But I would say that in the quote unquote argument of does the does the person need to be the brand, your contention that they do not is valid. You know, they don't. In fact, they need to. Without you, there would be no Musimorphic.
At this point,
So
yes.
that's true. Well, no, always, in the sense that you would have to have created it. Without
Oh,
you,
I see what you're saying. Yes.
yeah, without you,
I gave it a
it
push.
it doesn't. Yeah, you gave it a push, or you gave it a burst, or you gave it, and that to me is what people are interested in. But that is a part of the process.
Yes, it
So
is.
so I think you've covered that. You've stepped into that. You've accepted that. And now it's about, okay, well, how do you take Musimorphic beyond, to the point where it becomes something that everyone learns how to use and how to adopt, and of course that will be the most fulfilling, the most thrilling, and the most fun part of the process.
So
But
you
yeah,
asked the question how, and I resonate for how. When I hear how, I'm like, yes, we
yeah,
can talk.
Yeah.
And that really is the question, how to do it. And my answer so far is how not to. There's a lot of things
Okay.
that don't work for this.
Yeah.
But on the how, the only positive direction that I've got is that this can work one to one. So that doesn't put me in a B2C or B2B category. It just says this is how it works. It works one to one. At this stage in the growth of the product or the service or whatever Musimorphic is, we really need to get it one to one.
Mm-hmm.
And once that happens, those one to ones go out and explain it to somebody else. This is the way that Taylor Swift got fans. That Jason Mraz got fans. You heard him in the coffee
Mm-hmm.
shop. Oh, he made a record. Let's buy the record. He's cool. And then you start telling people about it, and pretty soon the music has a life of its own, of which the composer or the musician is very much a part, as you've identified. But their music, like how many songs has Manilow written? How many songs has Taylor written? John and Paul wrote over 300 songs together in a short period of time. Those songs now have a life,
Yeah.
and they take on that life. And how do you capture that, right? But the way that the marketing happens is word of mouth, because
Yeah.
one person heard you, and they told somebody else, and that person came. And so that's the best answer I have to the how right now.
What I will kind of close this part of our ongoing,
Our
conversation,
conversation.
is what I will close this chapter of the conversation for purposes of the podcast.
Of our audience. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Is that the perception of a brand, like a perception of a person, is ever evolving. In other words, I love that you brought up Paul and John, because if you think about the Beatles, you think about this incredible burst that came on the scene, these kids, these young guys that started this thing, and now it's all these years later. Paul McCartney is in his 80s. Ringo Starr is in his 80s, though you would never know it
I know, right?
to
Music
meet
keeps you
him
young.
or talk to him or see him on at somewhere, which is, to my point, the fact that the music has existed all these years, and yet their personal brands now, which I would say, what is the Ringo personal brand? Peace and love. That's the Ringo personal
Right.
brand, right?
Yeah.
What is the Paul McCartney personal brand? It's not far afield from that, but there's a personal brand that Paul McCartney's developed that is the approachable genius, or the
Yeah, yeah.
approachable superstar.
The dude, the guy.
The dude. He is the dude of being, you know what I mean? In a way that, the same way that there's almost no I mean, everybody has, heroes and musical heroes and people they love, and Springsteen is very similar in that vein of being a very approachable, very human celebrity or
Love
superstar.
Springsteen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just literally wrote to a really good friend of mine something about checking in, in a crazy time, and just a constantly, and because we both love Springsteen, I just wrote, thank God for Bruce, right? Because he kind of has kept the conversation human, and keeps the humanity at a time when it's very easy to lose your humanity, or to fear for humanity. So my point being that as these people enter their 70s, 80s, I mean, Mick Jagger's another one in music. I just saw a thing where he was at the Oscars this year and presented the award for Best Original Song, and he has this incredible panache and kind of, humility in handling attention, where he said he said he goes, I was not the first choice to present this award. They wanted, Bob Dylan to present it. And Bob said, get somebody younger. And he said, so here I am.
Here I am,
But
younger.
yeah. But I think those images, those people as personal brands have evolved, Rod Stewart and so forth, have evolved over the years beyond
Beyond the celebrity?
their music, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, beyond I mean, just to the point where they are proving that they are more than the pieces of their creation, and they are big. And so my argument is supported by that, which is that you are bigger than your business.
Yes.
You as a personal brand are bigger than your business. But to your point, Bill, you don't have to stand in front of your business just because you may be more enormous than it. In fact,
Right. I understand.
if you think about it, the beauty of this part of our conversation is that none of those people that I mentioned, I believe, really thinks about themselves as more important than other people, than humanity. If they weren't truly servants of humanity, they would do everything they can possibly do to insert themselves into everything in the world, but they don't. They bestow these gifts on the world and then just are there to nurture that, to support that. Not themselves, not their museum, not their name, not their likeness, not their this and that. They don't, say, oh, I'll do it. Yeah, let me do it. I have to do it. It has to be me. But they create. And Musimorphic, and I think the hope for Musimorphic is that it is similar to that. It
Very
can
much.
be nurtured, it can be shepherded, it can be celebrated, it can be utilized, it can be grown, expanded, etc., without needing to take more than it gives.
I agree. I mean, you play for giant audiences that you never even connect with, except, they clap. But the most important moment is the one who takes the time to come find you later and wants to shake your hand and look into your eyes and try to say something. And very often they can't say anything, but you can see the tears.
Yeah.
That's the moment I live for. And it doesn't matter what they paid for the ticket to get in. If that happens, I'm doing my job right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say that I defy anyone to, Bruce Springsteen, let's say, if he has a net worth of, $1 billion, I defy anyone to say that he has taken more from music than he's given, And the same goes for all those other people and whatever their, net worth is. And I think their mandate has been that in the final analysis, they want to give more than they have taken.
Definitely for Bruce. That guy could be sitting back in retirement, right? But he is on the front lines getting into it. And it's rare that you have someone who's that articulate, well-spoken, a beautiful thinker, who's able to put ideas together in a way that people can accept and resonate with. And so although he's the rainmaker for that, it's so far beyond what he himself can do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and he
such an
realizes
inspiration.
that. He realizes that. And I think that everybody has the capacity to
There you go.
give,
Yeah.
limitlessly, right?
Yes.
It's simply a matter of conditioning. Has someone been loved enough, nurtured enough, or not loved, but recognized and yearned for love in a way that was unabashed, and so to the point where they've learned what love is, how to give it, how to receive it. And, once that happens, there are no limits. There really is no limit to the good that you can do.
Yeah. If you're listening to this right now, what Hersh has just said is so important because it's so far beyond therapy. It's so far beyond analysis and figuring out what's wrong with you. I don't care what's wrong with you. Let's talk about what you want. What are your desires and how can we support them? And if we can do that, and there's a musical way to power that search, you've found the right place.
Yeah, that'll be, I can say now, like the kind of the out point for the interview, because it captures everything. But if there is anything more that you want to share that we should include in this incredibly beautiful episode, then the floor is yours.
Oh, I think you're right on with using Mandy as an intro, like the introduction. And you won't get, you'll get a copyright for that, but you can dispute it and say, look, I'm using this bump music. It's 30 seconds out of an hour interview. So, that's fair use. Go away.
Yeah. Well, my attitude with that stuff is always, well, let's see what Barry thinks.
Yeah.
Ask Barry if he gives a shit if I can make some people understand the beauty of music better. And
Right.
And Barry would say, well, how much money is Hersh making from using that thing? And they would say, well, nothing. He would say, well, then leave him alone.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where I am
what
on this
would
stuff
think.
all
That's
the
what
time.
I would think,
But,
Well,
it's the
thank you.
music industry we live in. Man, what a great interview. Thank you. I love this. And the conversation that we need to get back to in LinkedIn,
Yes.
I'll share that AI thing with you
Oh, yeah.
because it takes it like an hour and a half to read it. It really does. And you'll want to read it twice because it's deep. But I feel a certain responsibility being an AI critic to bring that kind of advanced thinking and forecasting and like these guys are really pulling it all together to the table so that all the rest of us can begin to consider the importance of trust and honesty in the development of these tools.
Well, I'll read the summary.
Yeah. Or you can listen to it. I read it and then I'm listening to it now. So,
Yeah.
and they can give it to you as a PDF. And I mean, it's well developed.
Thank you.
All right.
If you liked the show,
Yes, and
it worked for you,
yes, then
subscribe and leave a
yes, friend.
5-star review.
Yes, friend.
Tell all your friends.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Did I make it clear?
Yes, friend.
Get your branding on
Yes.
before they're gone.
Yeah.